Hello folks, in this video I'm making a PNG avatar in Inkscape, and it's going to be based off of my logo. And the general principle is going to be I'm going to have a mask with some eye holes in it, and then have some pupils that move underneath to make it appear that I'm looking in different directions. So here I'm making an outline of the upper and lower eyelashes and adding the pupils, and just generally getting a rough shape of what I want. And here you can see that I can move around these different pupils, and they'll point in other directions, but what I really want them to do is to be clipped off when they're outside of those eyelash ranges. So I'm going to rearrange the pupils to be at a different level. Then I'm going to trace the shape that I want to cut out. So I'm using the Bezier curve to match those different eyelid shapes, and I use these bright shapes just so that I can see it clearly. I also want these shapes to be as simple as possible. Once I'm happy with that, I can select two different paths and then create a new shape after that. So I'm going to select the path for my mask and the path for the cutout that I want. And then I'm going to go up to that upper left corner and select the shape builder tool and then select on what I want to keep. Here you can see the white shape of the background showing through those different masks. Then I'm going to go to the layer that the pupils are on and activate them and grab them around and see how they look when I move them around. So here I select both the pupil shapes, and you can kind of see that it looks like I'm looking around with this different avatar. So that's the general principle, and the rest of this video is me just trying to determine what really looks good for this avatar. What I realized is that I need to move the eyes around and make them a different size and shape. So what I'm able to do is select multiple nodes on that mask layer and move them however I need. When I go back and look at some of my reference photos, I realize that I need the eyes to be a lot larger. If I make the cutouts wider, I can move the pupils further to the left and to the right. And it's kind of in the style of like a Samurai Jack character, but it's simple and it's effective. Here I move the pupils around without the white of the eyes. That's how I was originally drawing it in my sketches, but the whites of the eyes have kind of been growing on me. There's a little bit of an error when I move the pupils too far to the left or to the right. They bleed into the other cutout, so I just need to be careful about the size and shapes and how far I move each pupil. Ultimately, I decide to make the eye cutouts even wider, so they're even easier to see if I decide to have this be a very small part on the screen. Here you can see that I can move the pupils a little bit further before they're clipped by the left and right sides of the eye cutouts. Here I'm pretty satisfied with the shape, but I feel like I can make it just a little bit larger. I'm starting to get a little bit nitpicky about the different design elements, so I think I can make the eyes a little bit taller. And I'm also zooming out just to see what it looks like when the image is really small. And I play around with the mouth a little bit, figuring out what size and shape it should be. Overall, I realized with the different shape of the mouth that the eyes still need to be a slightly different shape. And in this case, instead of moving the upper part higher, I just moved it a little bit lower, so the whole eye is sitting a little bit lower on the face. And I have the eyelashes in, and it's looking pretty great. I add in some lower eyelashes, but I'm not sure if I need them if I keep the whites of the eyes. I think it could go either way. I either keep the whites of the eyes or I keep those lower eyelashes. I think the overall range of motion from the pupils is pretty good. There's still a little bit of weird clipping because the lower eyelashes don't go all the way to the left and to the right, and I might actually change that depending on which direction that the pupils are looking. I try one more time to make the eyes even larger, and I think it goes a little bit too far because the aspect ratio of the pupils are just too large. So I go back to what I originally had without the whites of the eyes, and I think this is in a pretty decent place. The next steps from this are adding more features like eyebrows for different emotions, and still playing around with different faces, and that might change how I shape the eyes even more, and if I decide to keep the whites of the eyes. But let me know down in the comments what you think the best eye style was. Thanks for watching, see you later.